The average Swiss person is worth over $100,000. But just 150 years ago, Swiss families were so poor, they literally sold their children as farm laborers, and most of the boys never survived. Here's how a landlocked country with zero natural resources pulled off the greatest economic glow-up in history, using 3 strategies so simple they sound fake. In 1850, Switzerland was so poor that over half the population worked just to grow food, and they still couldn't feed everyone. The country was basically Europe's forgotten backwater. No ocean for trade, mountains blocking everything, and winters so brutal that 1816 literally had no summer, thanks to a volcanic eruption in Indonesia. While Britain was building the world's first railways and America was striking gold in California, Swiss families were eating tree bark soup. I'm not joking. Actual tree bark. The situation was so desperate that entire villages packed up and fled to places like New Glarus, Wisconsin, and Nova Friburgo, Brazil. Yes, those are real places founded by starving Swiss refugees. Right now, while you're watching this from your heated home with your Swiss chocolate, realize that Switzerland transformed from Europe's poorest country to having a GDP per capita of $106,000 in just 175 years. Their strategy was so counterintuitive that every expert said it would fail. The same 3 principles they used are being copied right now by Singapore, Dubai, and Rwanda. And you'll learn strategies that apply to your personal finances. Yes, really. Stick around and you'll understand wealth creation better than people who paid $200,000 for business school.
In 1848, while the rest of Europe was having violent revolutions, Switzerland did something insane. They created a unified country out of 26 mini-states that hated each other. Think of it like forcing Texas and California to share a bank account. Absolute chaos. But here's where it gets wild. Instead of fighting over who gets to be in charge, they invented something called direct democracy, basically letting everyone vote on everything. Critics called it mob rule by mountain peasants. The Prussian ambassador literally wrote, "This experiment will collapse within 5 years." Wrong. Dead wrong. This mob rule became their secret weapon. While other countries had kings making dumb decisions, looking at you, Louis XVI, Switzerland had farmers, bankers, and watchmakers all voting on economic policy. Sounds like a recipe for disaster? That's what everyone thought. Imagine your entire country's economic strategy was, what if we just asked everyone what they want and then did that? While France was having its 9th government collapse and Germany was still figuring out how to be a country, Switzerland was quietly building something unprecedented. But within months, something unexpected happened. When the Swiss National Bank was proposed in 1850, it wasn't some top-down decree. 26 different regions had to agree. This forced them to create a currency so stable, so trustworthy, that 170 years later, people still run to Swiss francs whenever the world economy sneezes. But the real genius wasn't the democracy itself. It was what this weird system accidentally created. Year 1, GDP growth 0.5%. Year 2, mass emigration continued. Year 3, the London Times headline literally read, "Swiss experiment in democracy proves folly of mob rule." The French were pointing and laughing while building another palace. The Germans were too busy with their 300-plus mini-kingdoms to even notice. The Austrians, they were taking bets on when Switzerland would beg to join their empire. In 1870, a Zurich banker named Alfred Escher was eating rosti, that's Swiss hash browns, in a restaurant that couldn't afford meat. He famously said, "One day, the world will keep their gold with us, not because we're strong, but because we're boring." Everyone thought he'd lost his mind. Boring as an economic strategy, but underground, 3 things were quietly happening that nobody noticed. Warning, sign number 1 that it would work. In 1864, while America was literally tearing itself apart in civil war, tiny Switzerland hosted the first Geneva Convention. Wait, why would broke, irrelevant Switzerland host an international peace conference? Because being neutral meant everyone trusted them. Warning sign number 2. By 1872, something weird was happening with Swiss watches. Despite having no colonies for raw materials, no ports for shipping, and no military to protect trade routes, Swiss watches started appearing in London shops. How? They couldn't compete on price, so they competed on something nobody expected. Warning. Sign number 3. In 1881, the Bank for International Settlements quietly started noticing something. French millionaires were moving money to Swiss banks. Not a flood, just a trickle. But the French government noticed too, and they were not happy. Then on February 2nd, 1934, everything changed. And no, it wasn't what you think. While everyone focuses on Swiss banking secrecy, we'll get there, they missed the real transformation. Switzerland had spent 80 years building 3 things nobody else bothered with. Political stability, no coups, no revolutions, no drama, boring, education, obsession. By 1900, Switzerland had more engineers per capita than any European country. They couldn't afford wars, so they got really, really good at making stuff. Selective neutrality. This is where it gets spicy. The aha moment. While every other European country was picking sides for World War I, Switzerland said, nope, we're Switzerland. We don't do teams. But here's the genius part. They sold to everyone. They doubled down on what I call aggressive neutrality. Swiss banks in 1910 literally sent salesmen to Paris advertising, your government is raising taxes for war. We are not. Swiss bank deposits grew by 400% between 1910 and 1920. That's not a typo. 400%. This triggered a beautiful cycle. More deposits meant more capital. More capital meant more lending to Swiss businesses. More business meant more innovation. More innovation meant more exports. More exports meant more deposits. 1920. New York Times headline, Little Switzerland emerges from war richer than ever. How? But then, 1934 happened. The Swiss Federal Assembly passed the Banking Act, making it a criminal offense, punishable by prison, to reveal client information. Everyone thinks this was to protect Jewish refugees from Nazis. The real story? It started with French tax collectors getting aggressive about their millionaires' Swiss accounts. If you're as obsessed with economic glow-ups as Switzerland was with being neutral, hit subscribe. We break down genius money moves every week, from countries that went from rags to riches to strategies you can actually use. Drop a comment with which part of Switzerland's strategy shocked you most. Speaking of shock, wait until you hear what happened during World War II. Between 1945 and 1970, Swiss GDP per capita didn't just grow, it went absolutely vertical. We're talking 5% annual growth for 25 years straight. For context, that's like your salary doubling every 14 years without changing jobs. Nestlé went from a baby formula company to buying everything. They now own 2,000 plus brands. Swiss pharma companies Roche and Novartis started producing half the world's medicine. The Swiss franc became so stable that drug dealers preferred it to US dollars, not investment advice. Swiss workers went from eating bark soup to having the highest wages in Europe. By 1960, the Swiss were working fewer hours than Americans while making more money, the ultimate flex. By 1970, every dictator, drug lord, and tax evader on earth had the same thought: I need a Swiss bank account. Was this ethically questionable? Absolutely. Did it make Switzerland insanely rich? Also, absolutely. The International Monetary Fund, headquarters in Basel, the World Economic Forum, Davos, baby, the Red Cross, Geneva. Switzerland went from irrelevant to literally hosting the world's money and moral authority. Talk about playing both sides. Remember that Prussian ambassador who said they'd collapse in 5 years? Prussia doesn't even exist anymore. Switzerland? Still here, still neutral, still counting everyone's money. Success created unexpected problems. Housing became so expensive that actual Swiss people couldn't afford to live in Switzerland. Every international criminal wanted a piece of that sweet banking secrecy. The 2008 financial crisis put a spotlight on Swiss banks helping tax evasion, but they used the same innovative thinking that got them rich. When the US threatened to blacklist Swiss banks in 2013, Switzerland didn't fight. They adapted. They loosened banking secrecy just enough to stay in business while keeping their rep as the world's vault. Critics now ask, can Switzerland stay rich without banking secrecy? Current numbers suggest absolutely yes. As of 2025, Switzerland's GDP per capita is $106,098, higher than oil-rich Norway. Why? Because while everyone focused on the banks, Switzerland quietly became home to the world's best universities, ETH. Zurich ranks higher than most Ivy Leagues, producer of 30% of the world's luxury watches, headquarters for more Fortune 500 companies per capita than anywhere else. Breaking down the magic, boringness as a strategy. No drama, no coups, no revolutions, just 175 years of predictable, stable government. Seems obvious now. Revolutionary then, when everyone else was having a revolution every Tuesday. Extreme excellence in narrow fields, can't compete on size, become the absolute best at specific things. Watches, chocolate, banking, pharma. Not sexy, but insanely profitable. Strategic neutrality, not just military neutrality, economic neutrality. Sell to everyone, judge no one, take everyone's money. Morally flexible? Yes. Economically brilliant? Also yes. These three combined created something economists call compound trust. Every year of stability made people trust Switzerland more. More trust meant more investment meant more wealth meant more stability. It's a wealth spiral that's been spinning for 175 years. Today's metrics: average wealth per adult, $696,600, highest in the world. 12 Swiss companies in Fortune Global 500, population 8.7 million. More millionaires per capita than any country except Monaco. Currency so stable it sometimes has negative interest rates. Banks charge you to hold francs. Every major international organization has offices in Geneva. Every wealthy person has money that at some point touches Switzerland. Every precision product probably has Swiss components. Singapore literally calls itself the Switzerland of Asia. Dubai is trying the same playbook in the Middle East. Rwanda is following the Swiss model for African development. The Swiss miracle reveals patterns anyone can use. The boring stability principle. You can't build wealth during chaos. The Swiss stayed neutral through 2 world wars. Your version? Have a boring, automated investment strategy that ignores market drama. Like the Swiss ignored European drama. The extreme excellence principle. Pick 2 to 3 things and become world class. The Swiss picked watches, banking, and pharma. You? Maybe it's coding, writing, and investing. Don't be good at 20 things, be exceptional at 3. The trust compound effect: every promise kept, every deadline met, every quality delivery builds your reputation. The Swiss built trust for 175 years. You can start today. Start a Swiss account, aka boring index fund that you never touch. Choose your Switzerland strategy. What 3 skills will you perfect? Build trust relentlessly. Underpromise, overdeliver, repeat. Right now, AI, renewable energy, and space tech offer Swiss-style opportunities. Small players who pick one area and excel will beat giants trying to do everything. How did Switzerland go from poverty to having more wealth per person than almost anywhere on Earth? They used boringness, excellence, and neutrality. Strategies so simple they sound fake. Could you actually copy their strategy? You could copy elements, focus on stability, pick narrow excellence areas, build compound trust. Why did everyone think they'd fail? Because democracy doesn't work, and small countries can't compete. Who's secretly copying this strategy right now? Singapore, Dubai, and Rwanda are secretly copying this. Singapore is even more successful in some ways. What's the one principle you can actually steal for your life? Start building your reputation for reliable excellence in one area. Today, remember when I said Switzerland was eating tree bark? Now they're worried their currency is too strong and crushing their exports. From starvation to stop giving us so much money, that's a glow up. Those 5 questions weren't random. They're the blueprint for recognizing opportunity. Switzerland saw opportunity in being boring while everyone else was being dramatic. But Switzerland's story gets even crazier in the modern era. You know what country is currently copying Switzerland's playbook so aggressively that they're beating the Swiss at their own game? Next week, how Singapore went from a mosquito-infested island that Malaysia literally kicked out to having higher GDP per capita than Switzerland in just 50 years. And yes, they stole the entire Swiss playbook, then improved it. Spoiler, it involves banning chewing gum and making air conditioning the most important technology in economic history. If you made it this far, you're either planning to start your own country or genuinely believe you can replicate Swiss success in your garage. Honestly, respect for both. Drop a comment with your favorite moment. Was it the tree bark soup, the boringness as a strategy, or the fact that Switzerland got rich by essentially being everyone's secret financial side piece? Like this video if you now understand compound trust better than your economics professor who's still teaching supply and demand curves from 1952. And subscribe with notifications on, because next week we're covering Singapore's even more insane transformation. Yes, someone actually got rich by banning chewing gum. Economics, but fun. Making success stories more addictive than failure porn since right now.